CNN News.
Collin talked about this a bit, but all your favorite mainstream publications are manufacturing consent for another war. So, which ones you might want to, all of them, all of them are doing it. So, but it also kind of harkens back to my previous segment, with similar kind of veins. But this is from the Dissident. Ein member writes over at Substack. So they write, with Venezuela, war on the horizon, mainstream media manufacturing consent goes into overdrive. So with the regime change, war on Venezuela ramping up, the mainstream media is getting to work and manufacturing consent for U.S. military invasion to overthrow President Nicolas Maduro and install a puppet government. Playing neocon Mad Libs, the Wall Street Journal published an article which claimed that Venezuela has become a major launch pad for huge volumes of cocaine shipped to West Africa, where jihadists are helping traffic it to Europe in record quantities. So,
sure.
And America has never had a history about cocaine in other countries, has it, Collin? In South America,
no.
It's never had a thing about that, right? Oliver North, who's that? No one knows. No one knows our history, apparently. So this is the article he's mentioning, right? The Wall Street Journal, how Venezuelan gangs and African jihadists, similar how they framed the Haiti debacle too, right? They do this shit all the time, but I think they also published that fucking Peace Prize lady with her bullshit this week too. But I digress. One of the only named sources in the piece for the claim is the former U.S. military intelligence officer, Jesus Romero, who, according to his bio, also used to work for the arms manufacturer BAE Systems. On multiple media appearances, Romero has repeated the false Trump-Rubio claim that Maduro runs a gang called Cartel de los Soles, which in reality does not exist. France 24 noted that, in March, the latest U.S. State Department report on global anti-drug operations made no mention of the Cartel de los Soles or any connection between Maduro and narco-trafficking, adding, "There is no such thing, so Maduro can hardly be its boss." Phil Gunson, an analyst at the International Crisis Group think tank, told AFP of the so-called Cartel de los Soles, "Direct, incontrovertible evidence has never been presented for the existence of an organized cartel by that name in Venezuela." And this also, I think even Rand Paul said this shit today, where it was like, there wasn't any, in all the Coast Guard stoppages from, there were no drugs, on any of the things from this country that were stopped previous to the fucking this administration. So somewhere there's some fuckery going on. In reality, as the think tank Insight Crime noted, the phrase Cartel of the Suns reportedly emerged in 1993 when two G&B generals, anti-narcotics unit chief Ramon Goyen Davila and his successor Orlando Hernandez Viejas were investigated for drug trafficking and related crimes. As brigade commanders, each wrote a single sun insignia on their epaulets, giving rise to the phrase Cartel of the Sun. When division commanders who bore double suns were later accused of trafficking, the name evolved into Cartel of the Suns. Ironically, a 60-minute investigation for the time uncovered that Ramon Goyan Davila's drug smuggling was being supported by the CIA. Collin, no! We would never do that. We would never be the fucking drug smugglers. When has that ever happened? While the Wall Street Journal is willing to publish such blatant propaganda, makes more sense when one looks at the fact the paper's editorial board openly suggests a rechange war in Venezuela. The editorial board of the paper, in an article titled "The High Stakes in Venezuela," wrote, "President Trump is in a high-stakes showdown with Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. One of the two presidents is going to lose, and it will be Mr. Trump if Mr. Maduro isn't ousted one way or another." What the fuck? What The article then went on to openly like, imagine this from any other country to any other country. Could you imagine? Like, imagine if Venezuela said, like, Maduro would fail if Trump isn't ousted. You know? Like, what? Anyway, so they go on in this article to openly call for regime change. We think deposing Mr. Maduro is in the U.S. national interest. If Mr. Maduro flees and the Democrats take over, it will be a giant step for freedom in the region. But if Maduro refuses to leave and Mr. Trump shrinks from acting to depose him, Mr. Trump and the credibility of the U.S. will be losers. Like, what the who let this man have a pen? Take this man's pen away from him. This is dog shit. Just like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times wrote its own article manufacturing consent for war by demonizing Maduro. The most absurd claim in the article is that after Mr. Hugo Chavez died in 2013, Mr. Maduro used Stalinist tactics to cement his grip on Mr. Chavez's fractious socialist movement known as Chavismo. Like, bro, the dude openly said, like, hey, this should be my successor. It's not that hard, bro. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, what the paper does not mention is that after Hugo Chavez died in 2013, Maduro was elected that April in election certified by the U.S. Carter Center. Like, the Carter Center report on the 2013 election wrote, as the high turnout and many opinion polls demonstrate, the Venezuelan population and the political parties and candidates in general have confidence in the performance and integrity of the automated touchscreen voting machines, as the post-election citizen verification audits of 100% of the voting machines demonstrated the automated system functioned as expected in records the votes cast, transmitting and counting them on April 14th. And we have personal friends who witnessed this exact, like, they were there, you know? So, moving to the WAPO, the outlet published an article that blamed many problems in Venezuela caused or exacerbated by U.S. sanctions on Maduro without mentioning the sanctions. The outlet wrote, the population of this oil-rich nation has been battered by years of economic mismanagement and political repression by the authoritarian socialist government. Inflation and unemployment are high. Supplies of water, food, medicine, and energy are unreliable, and political persecution is widespread. The article does not even mention U.S. sanctions. Francisco Rodriguez, a pro-opposition economist from Venezuela, put out a detailed study showing that U.S. sanctions prevented oil production from recovering. And economist Mark Weisbrot and Jeffrey Sachs noted it is important to emphasize that nearly all of the foreign exchange that is needed to import medicine, food, medical equipment, spare parts, and equipment needed for electricity generation, water systems, or transportation is received by the Venezuelan economy through the government revenue from the export of oil. The UN noted in 2021 that sanctions on Venezuela have exacerbated pre-existing economic situations and have dramatically affected the whole population of Venezuela, especially, but not only those in extreme poverty. Women, children, medical workers, people with disabilities, or life-threatening or chronic diseases, and the indigenous population. So, just like with every previous war, the mainstream media, right on cue, is publishing propaganda to justify another regime change war. So, Kibber, do you remember this era of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, right?
Yeah.
And the propaganda like that happened in real time. But I think people forget some of those involved, like in that process, right? But we're gonna do some remembering. Pepperidge Farm's gonna do some remembering around these parts, okay? So watch the beautiful bean footage and do some remembering. So W.
Is that sounds right now, or because I can't?
Yes, there is. Hold on. Resetting. we go.
We cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud. Terror, terrorism, terror.
As Americans, we like to think that we're not subjected to propaganda from our own government, certainly that we're not subjected to propaganda that's trying to drag the country into war, as in the case of setting the stage for the invasion of Iraq.
Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
There is no doubt.
That fucking sound familiar? That shit sound familiar? We just talked about them talking about African cocaine and shit. No, it's the same playbook. They haven't learned anything fucking new.
Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction.
Botulinum, VX, sarin, nerve agent.
Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Iraq and Al-Qaeda.
Terrorism,
Cyber attacks.
nuclear program, biological weapons,
Cruise missiles. Ballistic missiles.
chemical and biological weapons.
Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
President Bush has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Tony Blair has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
What happened to him about that?
Has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Richard Butler has said they do. The United Nations has said they do. The experts have said they do. Iraq says they don't. You can choose who you want to believe.
The war propaganda function in the United States is finely tuned, it's sophisticated, and most of all, it blends into the media terrain.
The White House says it can prove that Saddam Hussein does have weapons of mass destruction, claiming it has solid evidence.
The White House insisted again today it does have solid evidence.
It's necessary to provide a drumbeat media echo effect.
They might fight dirty, using weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological.
Anthrax, smallpox, dirty bomb.
Oh, who is that? We know that guy.
Dirty
Fucking
bomb, Iraq
Hannity?
Al-Qaeda connection.
Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda share the same goal. Both of them want to see Americans dead.
And I was very struck by the acceptance, the tone of most of the media coverage as the sabers were rattled, as the invasion of Iraq gradually went from possible to probable to almost certain.
President essentially giving Saddam 48 hours to get out of Dodge. War now seems all but inevitable.
Short of a bullet to the back of his head or he leaves the country, war is inexorable.
Well, I think that's exactly right. War is inevitable, and it is approaching inexorably.
Is war with Iraq inevitable right now?
I think it's 95% inevitable.
You, at this point, right now, tonight, don't see any other option but war. Do you? I'm asking you, Ambassador.
I agree. I don't think there's a viable option for the administration at this point. We're way too far out front in this.
Send us over there, guys. Let's get on with it. Let's get it over with.
Showdown Iraq. If America goes to war, turn to MSNBC and the experts.
And in many ways, the U.S. news media were equal partners with the officials in Washington and on Capitol Hill in setting the agenda for war.
We'll take you there. MSN.
And although it's called the liberal media, one has a great deal of difficulty finding an example of major media outlets in their reporting challenging the way in which the agenda setting for war is well underway.
We've got generals, and if you ask them about the prospects for war with Iraq, they think it is almost certain.
Pay no heed to the peaceniks and the left-wing rock stars. They've had their 15 minutes of fame.
These people are essentially useless. They are reflexively opposed to war. It's a principled position, but it's the wrong position, and you can't take them seriously as a strategic voice.
We expect every American to support our military, and if they can't do that, to shut up.
And when that reporting is so much a hostage of official sources, that's when you have a problem.
U.S. officials tell CNN, Bush officials says that analysts say.
Pentagon officials tell us.
According to U.S. intelligence.
Often we're encouraged to believe that officials are the ones who make news.
U.S. officials say that U.S. officials here say, these officials here at the White House tell us.
They are the ones who should be consulted to understand the situation.
I just pulled these two things out. I've laundered them so you can't really tell what I'm talking about because I don't want the Iraqis to know what I'm talking about. But trust me, trust me.
If history's any guide, the opposite is the case. The officials blow smoke and cloud reality rather than clarify.
We will, in fact, be greeted as liberators.
The notion that it will take several 100,000 U.S. troops are wildly off the mark.
So the money's going to come from Iraqi oil revenue, as everyone has said. They think it's going to be something like $2 billion this year. They think it might be something like 15, 12 next year.
We seek peace. We strive for peace.
So Yeah, that's just a bit. But this is shit. Some of those people we talked about in my earlier segment were complicit in. If ones want to remember, Tuck, Piers Morgan, Candace. Where'd she work again? She worked somewhere. I remember. There was a place she worked. Her, Megyn Kelly, like all these idiots. So just be paying attention out here is all I'm saying. Dave DeCamp weighing in saying the Pope pretty much against this war as well, which he should be, you know? Like, that seems like a no-brainer, bare minimum position that the Pope should be having. Especially when Catholicism is pretty big over there in the South Americas and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, what he said, I don't know, an operation including an invasion of Venezuelan territory. Even the Pope's like, they might invade this shit. So, but anyway, anything you want to say before I let Caitlin finish this out?
Let Caitlin talk.
Yeah. Good old war propaganda. Just as the news breaks that Trump has issued Maduro an ultimatum to leave Venezuela immediately if he wants to escape with his life, the Murdoch-owned Wall Street Journal has published an amazingly brazen war propaganda piece titled "How Venezuelan Gangs and African Jihadists Are Flooding Europe with Cocaine." The article begins, "Venezuela has become a major launch pad for huge volumes of cocaine shipped to West Africa, where jihadists are helping traffic it to Europe in record quantities." And then it goes out of its way to note that the Trump administration's pressure campaign against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, who it asserts is heavily involved in drug smuggling, has brought global attention to the country's role in the drug trade, end quote. The propaganda piece is plainly aimed at Europeans as well as Americans, emphasizing Secretary of State Marco Rubio's quip last month that the Europeans should be thanking us for blowing up alleged drug boats coming from Venezuela because he says some of those drugs are winding up in Europe. It's got everything. Whipping up international support for a regime change war, fear-mongering about jihadists, the evil, scary dictator, the whole war propaganda sales package. The mass media do this every time the U.S. empire gets war horny, and the Murdoch press are always the most egregious offenders. Reminds me of an old tweet by a man named Malcolm Price. I remember in the run-up to the Iraq War, a friend I had known all my life suddenly said to me, "We must do something about this monster in Iraq." And I said, "When did you think of that?" He answered honestly, "A month ago." Price's friend had been swept up in the imperial war propaganda campaign that had recently begun, just like countless millions of others. Month after month after month, Western consciousness was hammered with false narratives about weapons of mass destruction, forced associations of Saddam Hussein with 9/11, and stories about how much better things will be for the people of Iraq once that evil tyrant is gone. Normally, it never would have occurred to the average Westerner that a country on the other side of the planet should be invaded and its leader replaced with a puppet regime. That's not the sort of thing that would have organically entered someone's mind. It needed to be placed there. So it was. The most common misconception about the free press of the Western world is that it exists. All the West's most influential and far-reaching news media publications are here not to report factual stories about current events, but to manufacture consent for the pre-existing agendas of the U.S. centralized Western Empire. They report many true things, to be sure, and if you acquire some media literacy, you can actually learn how to glean a lot of useful information from the imperial press without losing your mind to the spin machine. But reporting true things is not their purpose. Their purpose is to manipulate public psychology at mass scale for the benefit of the empire they serve. This doesn't happen through some kind of centralized ministry of truth where sinister social engineers secretly conspire to deceive people. It happens because all mainstream press institutions are controlled either by plutocrats or by Western governments in the form of state broadcasters like the BBC, both of which have a vested interest in maintaining the imperial status quo. They control who the executives and lead editors of these outlets are, and those leaders shape the hiring and editing practices of the publication or broadcaster. Reporters come to understand that there are certain lines they need to color within if they want to get articles published and continue advancing their careers, so they either learn to toe the imperial line, or they disappear from the mass media industry. If people had a clear understanding of everything that's really going on in our world, they would tear the empire apart, brick by brick. If they could really see how much evil is being done in their name, and truly wrap their minds around it, and if they could understand how much wealth the plutocrats are getting out of the imperial status quo compared to how little they themselves benefit from it, there would be immediate revolution. So the oligarchs and empire managers shore up narrative control in the form of media ownership, think tanks, Silicon Valley algorithm manipulation, imperial information ops like Wikipedia, and now increasingly through billionaire-owned AI chatbots to ensure that this never happens.
Yeah.
The entire empire is built on a foundation of lies. The whole power structure is held together by nonstop manipulation of the way Westerners think, speak, act, shop, work, and vote. If truth ever finds a way to get a word in edgewise, the entire thing would collapse. We know this is true because the oligarchs and empire managers pour so much wealth and energy into manipulating our minds. They're not doing this for fun. They're doing it because they need to. If they didn't need to, it wouldn't be happening. So what they are doing is intensely creepy and destructive, but it's also empowering because it shows us right where their weak spot is. They're pouring all this energy into controlling the dominant narrative because that's the weakest point in the armor of the imperial machine. What we need, then, is a grassroots effort to help truth get a word in. Help people understand that they've been propagandized and deceived about the world by Western media and by their power-serving education systems every day of their lives. Because propaganda only works if you don't know what's happening to you. Sow distrust in the imperial media and institutions. Open people's eyes to the fact that they're being lied to, and help them learn to see the truth. Anywhere the empire is sowing lies and distortions, whether that's in Venezuela or Gaza or somewhere else, use that opportunity to help more people unplug their minds from the propaganda matrix. A better world is possible. The first step in moving toward it is snapping people out of the propaganda-induced coma which dupes them into settling for this dystopian nightmare instead.
Well, closing thoughts, Kibber?
I just think, well, we'll see. I don't think people are going to be as easily swayed or convinced of what's happening in Venezuela now compared to how things were over 20 years ago. Especially with my, and you're a younger millennial, but like as a zennial for me technically, because I'm 80. I think we kind of wised up to it. And back then we didn't have social media to kind of, I mean, it was still actually it wasn't social media. We had the internet, like the baby of the internet. And even back then it wasn't as good or as connected as it is now to share information to kind of counter this.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to go. And I think obviously given people know how much money is spent towards war, and the fact that we're willing to do that, but then like not taking care, this is not America first. So I think if anything, this is kind of, it's just going to be a repeat of what we saw in the Bush era. Like, I think almost an exact repeat. You're going to have, and you could probably quote me on this and maybe clip it out and see if this comes to pass within the next year or two. We're going to go into this war. People are going to get so jaded that someone in the Democrats is going to start talking about affordability. I feel that's going to be the key word that they're going to use now heading into 2026 and 2028. Affordability, but they don't give any like tangible radical policies into making things affordable. And as I said, affordability is, it's a misnomer because it doesn't discuss how things can be affordable to one person but may not be for another. So there's not going to be a discussion of that, of how, again, to make things universal for people, like especially in allegedly the richest country in the world, but I digress. I just see the Obama effects at play, coming into play. Probably not in the same way, but again, because it's Trump and he is such the boogeyman, like at least Bush W was somewhat of a lovable idiot. Like, Trump, everyone generally just hates his guts. So we're gonna get like an Obama type, whoever is Gavin Newsom, whoever the Democrats drag up to be the next white hope, and they're gonna talk that language into 2028. People will vote. There'll be a Democrat, assuming Trump doesn't pull shit. Rinse, lather, repeat. But this is what it's giving. It's giving like Bush era vibes, to where people were just so over him that it's going to be very easy for a Democrat to say the right thing and give sweet political nothings to us. And people vote, and they'll be disappointed, and the cycle continues.
Yep.
The
Pretty
end.
much. Rinse and repeat, So yeah, I think it's just continuation of the standard like media literacy we try to give our audience, but keep an eye out for the people that change their mind on this Latin America thing that you think are decent because of some bare minimum takes on other issues. I saw Matt Gaetz get into it and fuck up, and I've been told by a couple of people, no, he's good. No, the fuck he's not. Like, fuck you. But anyway.
If they're involved in the empire, you can assume they're not good.
Thank you. Makes sense to me. So anyway, it's probably one of the reasons talking about these things is why we're demonetized. So you can scan the QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, or links are in the description below. Help keep the lights on over here. And otherwise, if you're one of the poors like ourselves, just like and subscribe and hit the share button. Allegedly, it gets it to more people, and we know that's what they don't want to happen. But, let us know what you think. Leave a comment. How well is this propaganda going to work this time? And otherwise, thanks for watching.